go ahead and get started. Amanda, you ready?
We'll get moved in.
We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is our City of Palatka Community Redevelopment Agency meeting for October 8th, 2018. We will have our invocation at this time. We're going to ask Ms. Driggers if you would lead us in the invocation. And we would ask Vice Mayor Brown if you would lead us in the pledge.
Bow your heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for these blessings today and all the many blessings that you bestow upon us every day. We ask that you guide this group with wisdom and knowledge, and the participants here, guide them also with wisdom and knowledge. We ask all of these things in Jesus Christ's precious and holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
None of that's ever going to change.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Terrell L. Hill,
Here.
Vice Mayor Mary Lawson Brown,
Present.
Commissioner Justin Campbell,
Present.
Commissioner Rufus Cora, Commissioner Tammy McCaskill. Here. Mr. Sam Deputy,
Present.
Mr. Terry Suggs.
Present.
All members but Commissioner Boren present and accounted for, and you have a quorum.
Thank you. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes that were distributed?
Motion to approve.
Second.
That's for our August 13th meeting.
Motion to approve.
Oh, and September 19th.
And you also emailed minutes for September 19th. Did you have an opportunity to review those as well?
Yes, sir.
I have it.
Okay. I'll entertain them. Does your motion include both minutes?
Yes.
There's a motion on the floor in a second.
Commissioner McCaskill asked if we passed. Which one?
You want to pass September?
This September, yes.
I'll make a motion to approve,
August.
August meet and, tabling approval for September's meeting minutes.
I'll second that as well.
There's a motion on the floor in a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to our public comments. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. No action will be taken on topics of discussion. Is there anyone here for public comment? I've got Mr. Carr, who's filled out a card. Will you please come up at this time?
Hello, CRA. I'm Sam Carr, 108 Riverside Drive, Satsuma, Florida, and the head guy in the Bartram Trail Committee. I'm here to report on the Bartram Frolic that you guys sponsored us or helped us along with, and it was a riotous event. We had a great time. The Frolic on St. John's was the education part of it. We brought in almost 700 second graders to the River Center and took them out on a boat ride. And the very first group that we took was from Middleton Bernie down in Crescent City. And so I was there and I asked them, how many of you have never been on a boat ride before? And all but 2 kids raised their hand. It's amazing. And so we did that to 700 kids, second graders here. It was just fantastic. And we had all kind of great participation during the week. Friday night, some of you came to our VIP frolic, and there was frivolity. And the Long Warrior scared us all by leaping upon the desk and declaring the frolic to be on. And it was a great time. Saturday, we had a great start to the 5K Health Heart Run. And that was good. They had a good crowd for that. Then there was 2 hours of pure chaos and getting everybody set up and all of that good stuff. In the meantime, 12 paddlers paddled from the riverfront in Palatka to Rollstown, and all 12 of those paddlers were from outside of Palatka. They didn't come in for that. We started our Pride of Palatka tours at 10 o'clock. And with Lisa Reineman, the river keeper, to a full crew of 40, and we had all 3 of our cruises were full, all 40 all of them were full, so we took 120 people out onto the river. The other event was the biking event, and Linda Kreider led 12 bikers through the city of Palatka, seeing the historic north and south side, and seeing our murals and so forth. All 12 bikers were not from Putnam County. So just to show you, it does draw folks from outside. By the way, people paid to do all this good stuff. So there's money there. And so the frolic actually opened at 10 o'clock, and it was hot and nasty, and we had a full boat. We had the Long Warrior was there, Billy Bartram was there, Joe Wiggins was there, the Fort Mosaic soldiers were there, and you saw a whole bunch of families. And that was the whole purpose of the thing, was to bring the families. We estimate 1,500 to 1,800 folks showed up, and we done good, in my opinion. And in the Sunday frolic, or Sunday symposium, we had about 70 people show up for that, and that went off as well as good. So I personally want to thank you folks for supporting us in this event, and we want to thank the city of Palatka for all that they did. All the people with the city did an excellent job for us in putting this thing on. So thank you.
Thank you for the work that you did on this and your committee as well. We definitely appreciate you. Let's give them a round of applause.
Absolutely.
Now can I say my heart is smiling, because this is something I have wanted us to see for years, and it's beginning to take hold. And I want to personally say thank you to those folks that had a vision to want to move us to where we should have been a long time ago. Thank you.
I also want to say thank you, not only on behalf of the city of Palatka, but the Putnam County School District for providing that opportunity that kids at this point in their life was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I can tell you about the kids on Mosley's campus. They talk about it and still are talking about it. So again, thank you for providing that opportunity.
Okay, good. Also, just take the opportunity to personally thank you, Sam, for what you've done for this program, as well for what you represent here as well. I tell you, I was there last year for the shortened event, and unfortunately I had to be out of town this past time, but all I've heard since I've been back was nothing but positive comments, and I wanted you to know that those comments are getting back to us. And so again, thank you for the representation that you've shown, not only to the city of Palatka but the entire community.
Anybody else?
I'd like to say that I participated Friday night in the Frolicking Good Time at the VIP event, and that was fun. And everybody was there in costume, a lot of people in costume, and they stayed in character all night, which was fantastic. And did the 5K on Saturday morning, stuck around for most of the morning. The Fort Mosaic was wonderful. That was really, really nice, yeah.
Not too much grub.
No, they had to push it on me.
Yeah, oh, likely. So.
I did have one. I was driving.
But just an excellent event, and we'll segue in now. Ms. Vance Rimberg.
Hey, Elizabeth Van Rimberg, 310 North 3rd Street. I wasn't really going to speak about the occupation of Palatka, but then it occurred to me that if you guys were going to talk,
That's
you want
Italian.
more good news. We had our annual Occupation of Palatka 1864 for the 8th time, the same weekend that the Bartram Frolic was happening. Our primary gist in doing this event is to encourage 4th graders to come to the Bronson Mulholland House and Grounds to really get a day-long feel for what life was like back during the Civil War here on those very grounds in Palatka in 1864. We had about 500 school children on Friday, which is awesome. We had 30 reenactors, which is huge. On Saturday, we looked at about another 450 general public coming to the event, with a swell in reenactors up to 45, which was really exciting. We would, as the Putnam County Historical Society, really like to thank the Bartram Frolic folks from the standpoint of our event is an event that is done on an utter shoestring. No TDC funding, no coming to the city and asking for help. So the fact that they are able, through the Bartram Frolic, to really bring the people here, we appreciate, because once they are here, we're able to get them to the Occupation of Palatka event. So the last couple of years, people have said, well, aren't you a little annoyed that they're doing the Frolic the same weekend? No, we're not. We're thrilled, because they provide that funding arm that we don't have, and we think that is just wonderful, because frankly, it's not about the occupation or the Frolic, it's about the kids. And the kids come out and have a wonderful time every year. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the work that you do as well, along with the Historic Society. Let's give them a round of applause as well. Mr. Russo, I have you on here. Are you on an agenda item, or it just says CRA, just in general?
No,
All right, come on
not
out.
an agenda,
Okay.
just count. So it's one, Vito Russo, 415 Emmett Street. I just wanted to give CRA Board an update on a couple of things. One, more good news. We were able to raise all the funds needed for the music festival, and we very much appreciate the CRA helping us achieve that goal. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. There are two topics of interest to the South Historic Neighborhood Association, and one was we want to reiterate our desire to reform the TIF program and to eliminate 3 of the 4 programs, leaving only the HIP following the north side. The only other issue I want to comment on was we're getting residences along River Street are starting to express concern about the public safety issue and the people speeding along River Street. So we were doing a little research, and we thought a relatively inexpensive way of addressing that would be through, we've already got textured crosswalks at the intersections along River Street, and we'd like to stick with those. But we thought that a relatively inexpensive way of traffic calming would be through taking the curbs that are along both sides of the street, and as they encounter these intersections that are going to be textured brick crosswalks, if we could narrow them down and eliminate the bicycle path. So we'd have to detour, somehow we'd have to deal with how we make the bicycle path still continuous.
You're gonna start a
But
fight.
if we could bring in the curbs,
You just lost this crowd. Hey, you lost this crowd. No, go ahead.
well, money is tight, and so I thought this would be, well, this is much more inexpensive than the one idea that we had researched which was the speed cushions. The speed cushions were about $8 a piece, and we needed 3 of them. So, so anyway, we just wanted to throw that idea out there, and we'll be working on it with Jonathan Griffith, and then we'll go from there.
Did you know we done talked about that speed on River Street for,
Years.
yes, and people have been watching it and looking at it, and I'm sure if there was a solution, we would have really found it by now. I don't know, but
Well, there's a
it's
solution,
been,
it's just a matter of how much money you want to throw at it. So. Anyway, thank you. Thanks for the help on the Porch Fest.
Thank you. Thank you as well. And thank you for your work on Porch Fest. Let's give Mr. Russo a hand. Is there anyone else here for public comment? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment at this time. Before we move into our regular agenda, I want to make sure that I recognize this young man sitting on the front row with his Troop 246 uniform on. Can you say hello to us and tell us your name? Alan Graham?
That's your last name.
I wouldn't want to.
That's the important part.
That's good.
I thought he was adopted there for a minute.
Well, we're glad to have you here, and we're glad to see you representing today.
Boy, time flies.
And so we're definitely proud of you. And so we're going to move forward. We've got on our presentations and action, Palatka Trail Town. application to be submitted to the Office of Greenways and Trails. Item A is to authorize execution of a letter of support and self-assessment survey. We'll let the other McLean do that one.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, and CRA members. Well, apologize in advance. When I get finished, I'll need to head out for our Cub Scout meeting tonight.
Yes, sir.
So, appreciate the acknowledgement there. It's been a privilege to work with the downtown business organizations, the CRA, and the City Commission on this Trails Town self-application and assessment to designate Palatka as a trail town. Sam Carr did a nice job presenting at your meeting in August, and I won't repeat all of his points tonight, but I did want to take a moment and talk about the designation is largely an economic development initiative, with its focus to help downtown businesses connect with trail users and vice versa. From your last meeting, a steering committee met with the endorsement of the mayor on September 12th, and we reviewed the self-assessment. And at this meeting, the committee had made some edits, recommended to the CRA for further endorsement and ultimate approval by the City Council, which is scheduled for this Thursday evening. Additionally, the downtown business representatives suggested that they form a committee slash group to oversee and lead the Trail Town initiative from this point forward. When they approved by the City Council, the self-assessment will be transmitted to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection Office of Greenways and Trails. It's their tentative plan to have their lead staff conduct a field visit slash tour while attending the Palatka hosted St. John's River Blue Alliance Summit here in Palatka on November 15th and 16th and 17th. Important to note for your calendars, and I will get back with the city manager on this, but on the evening of November 16th, that Friday on the 15th, we'll have a leadership reception at the River Center, which is specifically targeted for the elected officials in the region. So we'd love to see Palatka well represented there. Back on to Trails Town. Upon completion of the field visit, the state's Office of Greenways and Trails will review the self-assessment at their next meeting, which is tentatively scheduled for January. We'll be expected to present the assessment, so we'll get prepared for that at a later date. The CRA's backup for this item includes an endorsement letter, the self-assessment presentation, which is a PowerPoint, and the draft budget. These items needing approval, all except for the draft budget. It's really just there for planning purposes. The presentation as part of the package is a component of the self-assessment, is essentially a matching photographic essay, and is recommended for transmittal along with the package. If the chairman would like, I could run through it fairly quickly, but it's not necessarily designed to be a presentation for tonight. It's really a photographic essay. So if you'd like me to flip through that, I can. If you want to save time, we can pass on that.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Let us see it. I know we already heard to get out of him, but we need a little beauty.
Need a little education.
The historian has spoken.
We have three professional photographers lent their photography work for this presentation, so just wanted to acknowledge that.
Who's the kid on the front?
That's I warned him over here that
He's got a little more personality up there.
I hope you paid him.
Sam.
I hope you paid him. Did you pay him?
Yeah, he gets a lot more personality out on the trails. A lot of our work over the years, working especially with downtown folks, you guys have known the initiative, it's a lot about perseverance. And with Palatka, it's really also about location. We've been focused for a number of years of establishing Putnam County and essentially Palatka as our county seat as a trail hub of Florida. As you can see by this map, and I'm not going to elaborate on the details, but a lot of systems come through Palatka. We have some developed, some underway, a lot of connections. Started with a rail trail project from St. Augustine through Palatka to Lake City. I'm going to stop talking and just kind of flip through. They should be fairly self-explanatory. Along with the slide, there is a notes field that others, when they receive it, can read that explain what the viewers are looking at. important work that we've done, real important is the crossing of the river, train station depot. The boardwalk under the river is very important for safe access. This just touches on our maintenance aspect and who has what pieces, and it's further explained on the slide. The important part of the application was about what amenities does Palatka have to offer. We have a lot. This is the top of the River Center. Research Soccer Festival. Arts, business, and volunteers working together. She hadn't seen it yet. Murals, even supporting one of our trail routes. History, folks love to travel and see history. Opportunities are blossoming. Businesses and business organizations have been very supportive, helpful in this work, and are key to it. Additional business support. Our trail organizations. Assisting from cleanups to bike rides to historic reenactments. That's Billy Bartram.
Let the trails begin. Join your friends and neighbors this Saturday, August 17th, for the grand opening.
Yes, I know, sure. No, there we go. I'll make your WhatsApp. Just thought it would add a little nice touch for the folks out of town to see that video from 2013. A number of trail events that we do that, again, like Sam talked about, bring people to the community. More action of the events. Celebrating our successes. News and appreciation. This is some work we're doing. Look, I'll talk briefly on this, but this is a nice little initiative done with QI Roberts Senior High School. We're developing our wayfinding website, our phone app, and our hard copy trails map, all at an extremely low rate of my time and others. It's really pretty cool. A real neat group of smart young folks working with there. Again, more on what they're looking for. The application is about the wayfinding signs and systems, those kinds of things. We have a plethora of good information on our visitor centers for folks to find their way around, restaurants, etc. Social media is a part of our work. Our branding and our trail system logo as it's evolving. One of the application questions was about safety and security, so they wanted to know about our accredited facilities, safety at hospitals, that kind of stuff, so it's all there. This is something we're looking at kind of down in the future, but I did a little research on this term, these types of trails. There are places or trails where there's not actually a physical line to follow, like a hiking path or a rail trail, but there are these, I call them bucket list trails, is another term for them. But we have one in town, the Donald Ross Golf Trail. We also have a Florida Birding Trail, which we're part of. So it's just something the community can think about. There's other things that we can do, like an Angels Trail or a Putnam County Fishing Trail, something else that would help draw folks to the community. Even our Palatka Rocks is kind of a fun one. It's a Facebook group. Does all kinds of things with rocks and people gathering and hunting, those kind of things. It's kind of cool. And that's essentially it. Just thought I'd run through, and that'll be with the application.
Good.
Again, I just wanted to thank the steering committee members. We had Mira Hill, Don Gooding with Putnam Bicycles, Robbie Correa, Dana Jones with the Chamber, Linda Kreider, Sam Carr, Terry Newmans with Ravine Garden State Park, Bob Stender with Putnam Blue Ridge Trails, CSO Kevin Patton out of Goldhead Range State Park, and Commissioner Buddy Goddard. So just thanks to them for their help on getting the application ready. With that, in the summary provided, the steering committee recommends the CRA endorse the self-assessment, including the presentation, and to execute your endorsement letter for city council consideration this Thursday. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, thank you for all the work that's been done on this project. I see several community partners who operate in various capacities as it relates to this project. And it's just a culmination of several different entities coming together and really just being able to show what this community brings about. And I definitely want to thank you guys for the work that you've done. And you make it easy for us to do this. The vision and really the spirit and the amount of work that you put into it, no one could ever pay you for what you do in your time. And just how dedicated the group as a whole is to what's going on. It's very exciting, and I'm also excited about Cedar Loop coming up next month as well. And so,
Sure, there's a lot of us that really love our community.
and so I definitely want to personally thank you guys for everything that you do. And I know thank you doesn't come enough, but I can tell you it's recognized and it's definitely appreciated. And so, just thank you guys again.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll entertain a motion to authorize execution of a letter of support.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you again, guys. Moving on to item 2 of the agenda, it was our program draft for our TIF CRA funding of special events. Mr. Griffin.
Board members, at the last meeting, we presented a draft program for special events grants. There were some suggested changes at the last meeting. We made those changes, and this is the document that you see before you. Are there any specific questions? Would you like me to review some of the changes? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, if I may. Mr. Griffith, in the body of the document, it says a not-for-profit organization may only receive one grant award per fiscal year per district, the 3 districts. What's an example of a nonprofit that might apply for more than one for a district, per district? I was just wondering why we had that in there.
The only organization that I could think of that would hold multiple events would be something like the Arts Council. Again, they already receive funding from the city. It's on, I think, $5,000 on an annual basis. I cannot think of a specific instance.
Aren't there at least 1 or 2 festivals that go from the CBD and kind of bleed over into the South Historic?
We have had some festivals that kind of have different events in different districts. That would be the example. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the only reason I was asking, just so we could get a clarification as to why that would be in there. So it sounds like you gave it some forethought, so I appreciate it. That's all I needed.
Got one other thing while we're going through that. Ms. Kitchens brought up something I thought was a pretty good point. If I can let her come up at this time and just kind of put it up there. And we have a speaker card for her as well.
Elizabeth Kitchens, 1027 South 12th Street, Palatka, Florida. I noticed under page 3 of your 9-page draft agreement, it's under the paragraph that says grant agreement and insurance requirement. You have, or not you, but item under city ordinance 50-222, which has to do with events and various regulations and insurance. Paragraph A has been dropped. Paragraph A in the city ordinance requires prior to the issuance of a special event permit, the applicant shall execute an indemnification form. I'm not going to read the whole thing here. Then under, they picked up recipients are required to obtain and maintain commercial general liability insurance, naming the CRA and the city of Palatka as additional insured, with a liability limit of no less than $1 million per occurrence and $2 million aggregate. That's good. That is covered under paragraph B of City Code Section 50-222, but part of that's been left off. Also, under that paragraph, it requires $500,000 per occurrence of property damage, naming the city as additional insured. And then paragraph C has been dropped completely out of this. Paragraph C, if alcoholic beverages are to be dispensed, sold, or distributed at an outdoor event, the applicant shall in addition provide liquor liability insurance in the amount of $500,000, which shall name the city as additional insured. I think that this draft agreement should be changed to match the city ordinance. That's City Ordinance 50-222.
Thank you. And I guess, Mr. Griffith, one of the reasons, you can kind of guess why I brought it up. I just wanted to make sure from an intent perspective, if there was, were you intentionally trying to change those parameters? Was there any thought process behind that, or are you okay with adjusting it?
No, sir, and I think the easiest thing may be to just take some of the specific language out. Assuming this document actually requires a complete application, a special events application, and we don't want to have language that either, we wouldn't have language that would supersede ordinance or code or conflict. So it may just be easier to reference the applicable code.
Either reference it or put a mirror clause in there. Either way. I would say,
reference the code.
right, so that's what I initially told Ms.
Because
Kitchens.
the application requires you to have been to the special events committee first.
Yes.
And that's all in the ordinance.
So if you go, and so basically if you just say that the insurance shall be done pursuant to section 50-222.
We can make that change, yes, sir.
And for the smaller events, that's what paragraph A is for.
Right.
Yeah.
So that clears it up. I think outside of that, are any other things that you guys wish to
I
discuss?
have a question, Mr. Griffin. Number 8 on page 2. Special events hosted by a not-for-profit that has a for-profit business. That one mind boggles me a little bit. Do we have an example of that?
Blue Cross.
Mr. Duffy, can you repeat your question? Because I have 2 8s on page 2. And
The first A.
The
First
the
A.
first 8. I'm sorry.
Special events hosted by a not-for-profit organization that has a for-profit business are not eligible for funding if the event is similar in nature to the for-profit business activity or operations.
I understand the second part of it, but a not-for-profit that has a for-profit.
Sir, there may be a grammatical error here. This was intended to protect some businesses within the district, so as to not promote a not-for-profit operation as a special event and to incentivize it with CRA dollars, which would be in competition with an existing business. So we may have to look at that language just to clarify that.
You spelled like an attorney.
We can address that. Thank you.
I just didn't.
And
Go ahead.
if it's all right, I'd like to point out something else on the very first page, the second paragraph. Applications for events occurring in the grant or the district will be accepted, reviewed, approved, administered by the city CRA. Maximum grant award shall be $2,000 and shall not exceed 25% of the event budget. You've given out 2 in excess of $2,000 just in the last month. One of that was to Bartram, and one of that was to Porch Fest. It was like $2,035 plus. Well, it was around a little over $2,000. Porch Fest was $2,035. Then that included the special. Does this include the special events permit? Because that is what was over $2,000 for Bartram.
When you look at I think when you look at this event, he kind of breaks out what the costs are, including fees. He has a portion in there where it talks about what it can be used for, and then it includes fees.
Mr. Triggers, I believe you're asking for clarification or confirmation that 2,000 is the number that we
Page
want
2.
left in the document, correct?
Do you have a suggestion?
I thought it was 25.
Go ahead.
I thought the discussion was exactly what we're talking about here tonight, that because of the unknown threshold and dollar amounts from event to event, that we were putting some parameters on it. And I think that's why the document was drafted and put together. Is that correct, Ms. Logan?
Correct. I believe that this is a result of the questions that were asked about the amounts, that this is where this application, so going forward, we would refer to
Right.
these contingencies.
But I guess, and I guess Ms. Trigger brings up a good point. When we talk about events like Bartram, and I guess Bartram actually, in essence, gets a loan from the city, not a grant. So there's a distinction between the two funding sources. So there, typically it's a $9,000. It's been the last couple of years been a $9,000 grant loan that's actually repaid
And then there's a grant for the special events permit.
for the fees.
Right, for the fees.
Right. The other part, the second part of that comment from me is, in one part we talked about the number of years in which an organization would be funded. I want to say it was 4 years, if I'm remembering correctly.
It was a limitation.
It was a limitation, 4 years, right?
And then the fifth year is
50% from there. The only thing I would say about that kind of gives me angst, and Mr. Deputy, I don't think you'll mind if I use the example of Azalea, of the Azalea Festival, which is an event that's been around for a number of years. When we're in TDC just recently, Azalea's been funded a few times by TDC, not the entire 70 years, but it's been funded a few times in recent years. But you find certain events that may find themselves in a situation where they need the funding to sustain themselves. If they find themselves in some type of financial strain, I understand the reason for the limitations, and I actually agree with it in part. But there should be, I think, a special exception or an extra piece to it, which says, unless there are extenuating circumstances, and have those circumstances enumerated, so that you don't find yourself just blanketly saying, no, don't do it. Because if there's an opportunity, let's just say Bartram grows, and it grows continuously, and the CRA decided it just wants to continuously be a part of the funding for that event in perpetuity, then the restriction based upon the 4-year mark limits us in what we can do from that standpoint. It'd have to be done through some other special action or amending the agreement. And so,
I think if they're bringing people and commerce to town, they're helping us to help our businesses and stuff, like Bartram. And I hate to see a limitation put on it, the good stuff that they're doing. And we had a couple of things that are big enough that they help numbers of people.
yeah, I mean, and I understand the rationale, because part of it is you don't want to continually just be a part of the budget for the event. You want the event to get to a point where it's sustainable. But the other side of it is you become restrictive in so many ways. So I guess I'm looking for some conversation from the agency.
I'm looking on page 3, last 4 or 5 lines there. If they receive funding more than 4 years in a 10-year period, shall have their requested funding amount reduced by 50% in year 5, and are no longer eligible for funding. So, does that mean in year 5 they're done?
After year 5.
Year 5, and after year 5 nothing. But then what does it mean when we say no more than 4 years within a 10-year period? After 10 years, then does that recycle? Azalea's in 73 years.
No,
So every 10 years we would recycle?
It leaves that door open, yes, sir. So, under
I'm
the
just gonna keep
example
that
of
in
an
my
Azalea
head.
Festival or CRA, or Blue Craft Festival, when there's extenuating circumstances and it's year 10, 11, or 15, and the festival is growing or changing and additional investment is needed, they'd be able to come back.
Okay.
So what happens like they were this past year where we didn't have a craft festival?
That's actually got towards the year.
I think that's it.
Does that count towards the years or what?
That was their choice. Their choice. They haven't
Only
asked
the
for
years that they
money.
get funded. So if they don't get funded, it doesn't count. So if they don't use any funding, it doesn't count towards that ticker. Am I correct in saying that, Mr. Griffin?
Yes, sir. I think the only portion of that that would apply would be that 10-year period. But if you only got it for 3 years and you skipped year
Then
4 and came back and got it
then you
year
still-
5 and your 4th time, that's 4 times.
Right.
And I understand that the reason for putting this grant application together is to spread the money out. And of course, you would have to once you put your funding into the budget pot, so to speak, you would only have so much to distribute over events. And I think that was kind of the reason for restricting it, the amount of money. I just want everybody to understand that, like this year, Bartram got $2,035 as a grant in addition to the $9,000 loan. So they would only be eligible for $2,000 if this is adopted.
Bartram got 2,076.
Oh, okay. Was it 2,076? Yeah, it was close.
That is correct. An alternative to be considered would be to increase the maximum grant amount, and the review committee and the CRA and city commission would then have to decide every time a batch of applications came forward how much to allocate, knowing only how much is in the budget for that year. Having a restriction like this facilitates kind of spreading the money around.
Right. And this only speaks to grants, it doesn't speak to loans at all.
Correct.
Right.
One last question here.
Yes, sir.
I'm going back to the per district per year. So, for example, you hold a festival and the tow reaches into the north side or south side. So in year 6, then can I
Take your
apply
toe.
for a tow over here? Because you're looking at, if I am correct,
There's only one
part of the
person.
south parking lot of the Riverfront Park, I think is in the South District. And so, you know, if I'm using the park.
You only want to get a half credit?
And that's
Well,
what I
my
was
toe is
talking
technically in the
There's-
south, so that opens another door.
There's only one person that I would expect to ask that question.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's there.
They spread it.
If you're looking for funding, you're
We'll
looking for
give
funding.
him enough loading to cover his toe.
It doesn't open another door.
They say you get toe coverage.
I just had to ask that question.
And listen, after hearing him ask that question, make sure you clearly write down that it doesn't.
I'm pretty sure the evaluation criteria addresses that.
Listen,
Sounds
Give you
good.
toe coverage.
you call it the deputy rule. Anything else?
I move that we pass that with checking on the language of those two that we spoke about.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? My discussion point would be, I would recommend that we make the maximum amount 2,500 as opposed to 2,000.
I thought that's what we started with something.
It wasn't officially voted.
It wasn't. So this is kind of Chris parameters.
That was just the number that we threw out to try to get past where we were. There was no official number that was voted
Could
on.
do that.
Is there any further discussion?
So are we gonna look at the top, the
The mo-
25, or we
The
gonna
motion, the motion as it sits is for 2,000.
So I would just throw this out there, could you do a max or a cap based on class? Because some festival may be larger than another, or would that be something to consider?
That sounds reasonable.
Class A, I mean, they go
Sounds
through the
reasonable.
special events, they apply for, this amount of people should warrant either more or less than another class. It's just something to think about. And then that way, the money could be more evenly distributed, depending on
Or
what.
fairly distributed.
Fairly, there you go. Yeah.
And just to throw this out there, you could restrict a class or say Class B up to $1,500 and a Class A up to $2,500.
Right, that's what I
Dear.
was saying.
I can adopt that into the motion.
Okay. You gonna second
Are
that?
we gonna have that in totality before you adopt it?
No, you made the motion.
We would have to
must have seconded it,
have
and he
a
did.
reason why,
Just withdraw your motion.
yeah,
That'd
a
probably be
certain
easier.
dollar amount for each class of what you would recommend. I mean,
If I can add to the motion, then 1,500 for class, up to 1,500 for class B and up to 2,500 for class A.
But then when
You have to withdraw that motion
Do I
because
have
the
to
first
withdraw?
one's for the
He can amend
2000.
it.
He can amend
You
it.
can amend his
That's,
motion.
I'm amending the motion to
He
add that.
can amend it. We get a new second.
New second. Second on the
We have a
amendment.
second.
Thank you.
And you said 1,500 Class B, 2,500 Class A?
Yes.
And are you just not gonna fund Class C at all?
I know, that's what I was wondering, is there another?
Well, Class C is more like private events.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
So no.
I just placed the hand if I have one. Right.
All right. You've heard the motion. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Mr. Griffith, thank you for your work on this and the detail that you brought forward with this. We definitely appreciate it.
Thank you, we'll bring you back final.
Thank you.
So people know what they.
is it possible just to move the final to the city commission on the 25th? Or do you think there's gonna be
And the sneak
more discussion?
Moving the agenda to number 3 is an update on Christmas lights along St. John's Avenue. 3 minutes, Mr. Deputy.
Mr. Deputy, this is supposed to be a quick update.
Yes.
We're gonna do some
Talk's
tree
running.
trimming over the next 1 to 2 weeks, so you'll see some crews downtown. We're trying to get a contractor lined up to do some weekend work as well. And then we're trying to get the final date for the contractor to hang the lights in the next 3 to 5 weeks. But everything's progressing nicely, and we're even looking to save a little bit of money this year.
Can we cut his tree first?
Cut
Yeah.
this tree
You
first.
mind-
Can we trim his tree first?
Mr. Deputy told me he wanted to be the last tree on the block.
I was planning on that.
You know how I
So
feel,
he's not
Mr. Jonathan.
Anything else? Okay. We're good with that. Mr. Deputy, any comments on the update for St. John's Avenue?
On St. John's Avenue?
Seeing none.
Yes.
On the Christmas lights on St. John's
He
Avenue.
was thinking too long.
You look good.
Corn stalks are up.
Okay. We'll get with you tomorrow. Item 4 on the agenda, CRA plan update. Ms. Dietrich, thank you for waiting patiently.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, and CRA members. It's good to see you. And I hope to work with the new commissioners, so I can get to know you guys better. So I'm not sure exactly why I'm here. I've had numerous conversations with Jonathan over the last several months. I know we had many workshops for quite a while and then kind of took a pause, so I'm excited that something may be coming back.
You're here because they missed you.
Well, I missed you guys.
So there's been conversation about the conversations that we had previously.
Okay.
So there's conversations about what we need to do as far as updating the CRA plan. There's also been significant talk and some suggestions for new districts. And so the purpose of you being here is to let us know if that's something that you're interested in, and to give us an idea sometime in the near future as to whether we can afford you.
Okay, well, first of all, per your ordinance code, all professional services are advertised through public notice, through an RFP or an RFQ. So I cannot actually speak to scope or fee unless there is something that is put out in the public for me to respond to. So I have to reserve that answer because I don't have scope and I don't have a public record. I know that something may be drafted, but in this format, I don't think it's appropriate for me to answer that question.
Maybe.
So following the last meeting, staff actually reached out. We have some good examples of RFPs and RFQs. Typically for planning services, we would go the route of an RFQ so we could qualify and shortlist and then negotiate with the top rank. And we needed to have an idea on the scope, which you have provided us. It is at a minimum a plan update for all 3 districts, the public involvement process, the workshops, and all the necessary meetings, as well as document creation and notices to affect that plan update. So we have that at about 50% right now. We have been having some conversations with Ms. Dietrich, and we do hope that she responds to that. What we believe will be an RFQ. It may just morph into an RFP if we can limit that scope. I would like to know tonight if you want us to go ahead and include those additional scope of services, which would be the new district creation. Some of those could be an expansion of existing districts. Others would have to be funded by the commission for new districts.
Right. Yeah. Yes. For me.
Let me actually comment on that too.
Yes.
In the discussions that we've been having with regards to the fact that when, I think it was 2008, 2009, the South District, the North District, and the Central Business District plans were adopted after we worked together as a community for probably 2 years. If you want to, and I know, Mr. Mayor, you and I have talked about new creation of districts before in actually west of the north.
Right.
But I also have been told that there's some interest and discussion that's been had on creating a new district south of the South District. So if you want to expand an existing district, whether it's north going west or south going south, further south, you are able to do so and use TIF dollars because you're expanding an existing district. The difference for TIF dollars and the way they're spent, the frozen year, where the value's at the year that the plan was adopted, or actually when they were created, and the original plan was adopted, even though our plans that we did in 2008 and 2009 were really substantive, and the first original plans weren't, but you're still rolling under 80s, I think multiple years. 83, I think. The frozen value remains with each district in the year that district was created and the plan was adopted. So if you are going to expand an existing district, they're going to run on 2 different years. So you don't lose the frozen value of an existing district. So let's say in 1983 the South was created. You want to keep tracking on that frozen value because the property values were lower then. So therefore you're getting a bigger bang for your buck. If you expand an existing district, then the year that expansion of the plan that addresses that, then it rolls on that frozen year. So let's say we adopt it next year, 2019, or you as the city. So if you adopt an expansion, 2019 will be the tracking year for only that geography. So they will have to maintain, just like the 3 accounts they're maintaining now, a new account for that part. And remember, TIF dollars can only be spent in that district for items in that plan. So as to the comments about a festival bleeding over lines, then they have to share that expense. South can't pay for the central and the north can't pay for the south. You can't mix those pots. You are also able to make a plan that is unique to an area that's expanded. Just like the CBD is bookended by 2 residential neighborhoods that also have different densities and uniqueness, so they all have different character. But if you were to expand the South, for example, it's got a totally different character than the existing South. So you could make that portion of the plan subject to those wishes and desires for that area. You don't want to limit yourself, though. I mean, you can make the goals and priorities and projects, but the kitchen sink is why I built the umbrellas for you, because I didn't want you to have to keep coming back to a consultant and asking for more. That's why you want to give you, and the statutes actually encourage that.
So when you expand a district and the original district sunsets, because we're in the 2nd term of that.
If you let it sunset.
Right, but we've already got the extension. I don't know how many extensions you can have.
It's local rules, so you can do it.
So
the statutes govern the act.
But they don't sunset, the additional would not sunset at the same time then, would it? Or would it go for the 30 years?
Well, technically, because anything created on June 1st, 2002 or after, per the statutes, are allowed a maximum total time frame of 40 years. Anything before June 1st, 2002 was allowed 60, so we passed that time. So 40 years is the max. The state, and we've all, as the former representative for the Florida Redevelopment Association, we've lobbied numerous years in a row, as you guys are familiar, to keep CRAs around the state open. There's 224 of them, probably 227 now, and only 14 are in Northeast Florida. So that's why there's a little less knowledge and experience with them up here than in South Florida. But locally, you run it. You're the ones that they are not allowed to dictate that. They're trying to, and it's an election move, I think. But nonetheless, there have been other cities that have looked at. I know Jacksonville, for one, if they were to be told that the Act, Community Redevelopment Act, was to be abolished and CRAs through the statutes were to go away, that those with home rule would create their own method to go forward with something and just keep their own plan. And then that's why you heard lobbyists say, we're gonna get rid of home rule, which Mr. Mayor, you'd know more about that than me, but I don't know if that'll ever happen, but anyway, I don't wanna get too far down that rabbit hole. But yes, you can build it that way.
It's been a constant fight for the last 4 years. Looking at, there's been challenges to CRAs through the legislature continuously, and that's the biggest thing that's out there. We continually fight for the right to be able to control our CRAs, and there's been legislation for the last 3 years in a row.
And it's been because of one or two bad apples. Last year we had to fight for it because one CRA director actually funded, and I'm not kidding, I thought it was a euphemism for like a political term, for a puppet show. And I don't mean political puppet show, I mean puppet show.
Entertainment.
Yeah, Tallahassee was like, no. So there's just a few bad apples that are unfortunately unsettling all of us. So we're trying to say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't punish everybody for just a few. Maybe deal with them. So we're just gonna keep fighting.
They're actually going after home rule.
I know. Yeah, and that's
that's on the ballot.
That's a whole other animal. But also to go back to your original question, because I can't answer that question not only per your ordinance code, but also as a professional, it's not appropriate for me to do that in this format. Plus, it would actually risk my ability to compete.
Right.
So I don't mean to disregard the fact that I can't answer that question.
You do it for free, right?
I've been doing it for free for a long time, so we might as well keep going. Did you have any other questions about series or?
Question: is there a way for us to create continuing services, Mr. Griffith?
I'm sorry, sir?
Is there a way that we can create some type of continuing services agreement as well?
Yeah, we can.
Put that in the RFP, right?
Is that something that we would want to do in the RFP?
We would do an RFQ for continuing services. We would shortlist 3 to 5 based upon the responses, and then we would negotiate with the top ranked respondent for a continuing services agreement, and then we could then work on specific scope and task orders. I'll gladly do that if that's the will of the board.
That's the way to go.
Yep.
Seems like that's the consensus. So again, thank you for traveling down.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Good to see y'all. And I'll make some appointments or I can get with you after. The best way to reach you to set up a meeting through Betsy, I guess. Right. Very good. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Moving on to item 5, which is our reports. SBDC. Can we, for the next agenda, can we move SBDC up on the agenda so that they don't have to sit around for the entire thing?
We'd like to keep it full.
Ms. Lynch, are you coming today? Okay.
Interesting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Donaldson.
City Commission, and CRA Committee. I have some nice little color copies. I know you got all the reports that were put out, but I thought you liked fancy color copies. So we're just here to present our year-end, fiscal year-end report. And we provided the backup documentation from our Center Management Information System, and those included the fiscal year report on the county that does not include the city, and then also the fiscal year-end report for just the city of Palatka, as well as the documentation for the quarter. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I would just remind you, there are a couple of footnotes that I would give. I would just remind you that we print the reports just as City of Palatka. So if a person uses their home address in East Palatka or a P.O. box outside the city limits on their client contact information, you don't get that data as well. I would also say that I was very disappointed in the annual survey this year. Our state headquarters in Pensacola puts out the annual survey every year to clients seen in the last 2 calendar years to see if they've created any jobs or started a business or gotten a loan and that kind of impact data. So we used a national survey company. We joined 25 of our fellow state SBDCs around the nation. And the national company, took about 3 or 4 extra months to get the survey out. And then, in fact, our survey response rate was really low. Normally, our response rate at UNF for this particular survey is just over 20%, which is a pretty good survey response rate. This year, it was closer to 10%. So we were very disappointed in that, and we have asked our state headquarters to go back in January of next year to our original way of doing it. And we also, I went to a session at our national conference on millennials and how millennials respond. And the speaker said, not just millennials, only 10% of emails for every population are ever opened. So, and you know, you get a survey for everything you do. Every business you go to gives you a survey. So we are now going to incorporate text messaging into our survey response to see if we can pump that up, as well as written surveys. You know, the old kind you get in the mail and people actually, so we're going to try to increase that response rate. But that's our report.
Thank
And
you.
if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If it's specifics about Palatka, I'm going to defer to Chairman.
I appreciate the detail on the report. I think it's been very helpful, the new format. Any comments, questions? Again, thank you both. And we will try to get you up further on the agenda so that, because I know you still got that ride back.
Yeah, that's
So,
all right. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Palatka North Tiff? Seems later.
Elizabeth Van Rensburg, still at 310 North 3rd Street. We are really, really gratified on the north side that we did not indeed try to do a holiday home tour this year. We know that the construction was slated to be done with by September 1st, and we were kind of told, like, why did you cancel the home tour? Well, this is why we're not having a home tour. But having said that, I really want to thank Mayor Hill, Jonathan Griffith, Mandy Tucker for really reaching out to our neighborhood, demanding that, well, maybe not demanding, asking very nicely that we have a meeting so that everybody could be on the same page. It really meant a lot to us who are impacted so heavily by this seemingly endless construction that we really appreciate, to have you guys all come out and take the time to sit down and explain to us what the holdup was. Also really like to thank you all for making the occupation of Palatka possible by allowing us to get into the Bronson Mulholland House and back out again. That was really, really appreciated. And apart from that, we're just quiet and thankful and happy to be in the North Historic District.
Apart from that, that's one of those interesting situations where you got half a street that's in 2 districts.
That was very much something that came up at the meeting. The question was asked of the North Historic District, would we like to brick Madison Street? And we said we'd love to, but the CBD owns half of it. Go ask them if they'll pick up half the bill. So yeah, you're absolutely correct. Those boundaries are murky. Any questions for me?
Yeah, well, my thing is I want to thank, I definitely want to thank the residents as a whole for their patience throughout this process. I know it's been extremely frustrating over the last year. We can continue to hope and pray that Michael doesn't grow or turn, because I think Irma and Matthew really exposed a lot of flaws in our stormwater system. But I know it's been rough for the last year, and I think we've done through staff. I think our staff, every time they fix something, something else breaks, and I think it's just a matter of trying to get it where it needs to be. And also just looking at the conversations that we had that night as it relates to really trying to get the most bang for your buck as it relates to getting the streets fixed and putting certain things in place so that aesthetically it's a win for the community. And I was really glad to kind of have that conversation, to get a chance to have everyone at least address their frustrations, because that's a hard situation to live with. And you look at it when it's you look at the fact that we're going to end up spending somewhere around $1 million plus just on a couple blocks when it's a problem that's been lingering for 130 years. And it was just really exposed at an unfortunate time, and it created a lot of hardships for a lot of folks. And I think just the level of patience that's been exhibited overall has been commendable, because I know I would be kicking and screaming as well. And so I can tell you, we apologize, but everybody kind of understands the circumstances beyond our control, and we're 3 generations removed from the start of the problem, and we just kind of do what we can do, and I think that's where we are.
And I just want to say that I attended the occupation and thought it was fantastic. All of the reenactors were in character, very much so. I even watched a guy get ethered up so they could take his leg off. And, that was in the medical tent. They
didn't check with me on that.
Oh, well.
Was that in front of
I got a
kids
picture.
on Friday?
No, I got a picture of that. In fact, it made the Historical Society's Facebook post, was the guy.
And it's better to have the cannon than the pump.
Was that before or after the grog?
Oh, that was after the grog. But they were, the grog was the Bartram. This was, yeah. But they had the, say, well, bourbon's one and then either's the other. So, but it was really nice, thanks to, and I heard a lot of thanks for Mr. Griffith for getting the street open, Madison Street, so that people could actually travel to it. And if you just pretended really hard, it looked like a bomb had exploded the street or something right there behind it, yeah.
In a way, it was actually kind of fun, and I would just like to point out that I didn't get grog, bourbon, or ether, and I really could have frankly used some. Anyway, if you don't have any further questions for me.
But keep your leg.
Really nice.
So thank you. South. Mr. Russo.
Yes, sir. Vito Russo, 15, Emmett, still there. Yes, okay. Is it all working? We're very excited about the potable water line project that's coming to the south side. That was a priority for the district, and we'd like to keep working on the priorities that the south side has made, which would be, we'd love to go back to the brick streets that the north side has, and we'd love to get the power lines in the ground. That'd be fantastic. So these are priorities that they've made on the south side.
Okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you. Moving forward. Any reports from? Go ahead. Oh, come on up, Ms. Correa.
Robbie Correa, 118 Dodge. Just wanted to remind people that we have the first annual Palatka Craft Beer Festival on Saturday afternoon in partnership with the Palatka Young Professionals. We realize Historic Palatka is putting that on. And then also on October 27th, we are going to be having the Riverfront Folk and Blues Festival on the Riverfront. So come on down and drink beer Saturday and listen to music on the 27th. Thanks.
Thank you.
How can they get tickets?
How do they get?
Just went up.
They get tickets via Eventbrite.
Just saying.
While I have you all here and you're in session, so we can talk to all of you, gentlemen, would you like to come up and talk a little bit about preparations for Michael and what to expect?
Big Chief first.
Oh, he's going to do all of it. We had an EOC update this afternoon at about 1 o'clock, 1:30, reference to Hurricane Michael and its projected paths. It said a lot of it's going to be able to be told to us by tomorrow morning around 8 o'clock, and what it's going to do when it comes off of Cuba. It's going to be one of the key factors. We have, I think, a 32 to 41% chance of tropical storm force winds here in Palatka as early as Tuesday evening at around 8 p.m. So we'll find out tomorrow at 8 a.m. what the storm's going to do and prepare for some impacts tomorrow night. So we'll just keep hoping and praying for the best that it's going to turn west. Sorry for our people out west, but I don't know. So we'll leave it there and just hope and pray it doesn't affect anybody drastically, but it's intensifying quickly. Just looked at the 5 p.m. update, and it was already at the 80 miles an hour. And it's still sailing right off the coast of Cuba, so it's got a lot of time. And they said the waters in the Gulf are prime for buildings. So
yeah, the front is supposed to help
Yeah, there's a high pressure front up there that's got the ability to do a steering. If it comes off of Cuba slowly, I mean, they're hoping it's going to take the quicker path. If it comes off Cuba and moves slowly, it's going to veer more to the east. But they said they should know more about that in the morning at 8 a.m. So we're going to bring back a report to Ms. Driggers tomorrow, probably in the afternoon after the 1 o'clock meeting, to see if we need to ramp up any kind of staffing. We spent the day getting prepared. That was the message the EOC wanted to put out today, that we just go in a state of preparedness just to be ready, just in case something was to happen. They don't have any, they're not projecting any shelter openings at this time, but I mean, tomorrow morning could change a lot. So as soon as that comes out, we'll sure let you know.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Public Works has started on its pre-storm checklist. Public safety is ramping up just in case.
Yep.
I'll just let you guys know that they're going to be meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. at the EOC as well as at 1 o'clock. And if any of you want to attend those meetings, you're welcome to. Actually, there's going to be a lot more room at the 8 a.m. than there will be at the 1 o'clock.
So,
Very possible.
unfortunately, we've gotten to be pretty efficient at this process over the years, and so we'll continue on. We just got to make sure we're prepared to replace the data entry from Matt's side. And you don't have to worry about Terry and his sleepovers anymore.
Well, we did talk about that today, about the data entry from that side.
If there's, if I could, Mr. Mayor, if there's any updates throughout tonight, EOC, Ryan or Quinn will contact me throughout tonight. I would reach out to both of you folks via text message. I wouldn't call you, but I'll send out something via text message to both the public safety officers and you as well, Ms. Driggers, if there's any changes overnight. But we don't anticipate anything right now, and we will be there again at 8 in the morning. And if anything changes throughout the day, we're in session basically all day tomorrow till 5. So if we have to make any changes after that, we will. The issue with this storm is it came up so quickly, and we haven't had an opportunity because it's just formed. I mean, it just turned into a hurricane earlier today. Prep work is you certainly need to take precaution just like you would at any other storm, and individuals need to prep for themselves in case this thing does take a turn for the worse, because we won't have any time to prep much after that, and we're talking less than 48 hours.
Yeah, have we put the updates on the website?
We are getting ready to. We're going to send out a request for everyone to be prepared to turn in payroll tomorrow instead of waiting until
also,
Wednesday.
just something, kind of a heads up for the citizens too.
Yes. Yes.
And can we put out also directions for citizens, because even with the water situation, like I've been getting hit up like left and right, and we've been getting updates, but how can we make sure that citizens are aware of the way to sign up for the EOC updates so that they're getting them? And I know we're doing a good job at putting them on Facebook and social media, and everyone is sharing them that way.
If we go back to the page and share the link like we did last time.
Yeah, that's PutnamAlert.com.
And we have that on our website.
I'm quite sure I have it, but if we can put it in the forefront of things that way to make it easier for us to disseminate the information.
We've got the instructions up on the website as to how, and that stays up year round, how to sign up. That is how people were getting the reverse 911 calls, which were so nice. And every time I saw someone on the website saying, how do I get notifications?
But let's also put it up on all those Facebook pages, because what happens is social media actually ends up becoming the outlet whenever we get into a storm, because that's the internet's kind of the only way we can get through to a lot of folks. So we can do both.
We'll get it out tonight.
And so we'll do that.
But they'll send out a couple updates, I'm sure, tomorrow morning on PutnamAlert.com. Whenever time they get an update, they're quick about sending it out.
And we can share the link from the city's page as well, just so we have all that stuff in place.
Okay, sure will.
Go ahead, Bessie.
One more thing, the meeting for tomorrow night that was originally scheduled for the joint city-county meeting has been canceled. Probably not looking to reschedule it until sometime in late November, December, something like that.
Okay. As long as we can just get a St. John's Avenue paving update.
I was trying to say, we're trying to do a board us.
No, we just need it. He's got a meeting all day tomorrow. But if we could just get that. If If we can get a St. John's Avenue paving update, that'll give us, that'll probably be the whole meeting.
Is there a St. John's Avenue paving update?
Just send it in writing. It's on you.
I just have one thing, City of Palatka Christmas Parade. Attendance, will need to know if you're attending this year. And I need to remind the commission that last year, I told you by letter and to the city manager by letter that 19 would be my last year, because that will be 15 years in charge of that
That
parade.
ain't happening.
And
We didn't
so,
accept it.
You gotta get 20 with the state.
Yeah, I didn't get, I don't think I get a pension for this. But we need to find somebody, because we were supposed to be training them this year, because it's
I thought that
not
was a
as simple
downtown.
as just lining them up. You gotta do a lot of work.
I thought that was the
Mr. Russo.
downtown merchants.
No, the parade actually belongs to the city of
Mr.
Palatka.
It was a Main Street thing.
Yeah, I was asked to do it by Kathy Nagengast, if you can remember. 1 year because she was leaving and the city had not hired a replacement.
No, we still haven't, so you get a 5-year extension.
So I need to remind you that this time next year, I'll be bringing the book in at that podium to, because I didn't even get a book.
Can I get a
You'll
motion?
book.
Can I get a motion to decline?
So anyway,
So moved.
I need to remind that
Second.
at 19,
But the book will tell us how to.
yes. And so we really need someone in place by January to start that, because the work is done the first part of the year.
Okay, we'll talk about it then, but right now it's not.
Yeah, so just remind you.
Thank you. Anything
Hey,
else?
you just like me.
Anything else for the good of the order?
I'm getting my
You
trees
ain't going
trimmed.
nowhere.
Trees trimmed.
Ms. Brown, you're up.
I don't have anything today.
Commissioner Campbell,
No, I don't have anything.
Ms. Strayers,
I think I've said everything.
Mr. Suggs,
No, sir, I'm good.
Commissioner McCaskill. In closing, I want us to make sure that we send our prayers and our condolences to Commissioner McCaskill. She lost her sister last week, and we just want to make sure that we send our prayers up for Sister Denise and for the McCaskill family as a whole as they go through this trying time. We want you to know that we're here for you if you need us, and that our hearts are here with you, and that we definitely we're definitely going to be praying for you. And so if you need us, call us and we'll be here. If there's nothing else, we're adjourned.